This was interesting. We're talking about censorship and propaganda, and this sure was full of it. I looked into this, yesterday. Thinking about stuff to write about and put in the show, and I researched this thing. I looked at many articles about it that were coming out in news reports, because they're really not articles; it's recent news. And then, I wrote some stuff on my website, and then at the very end of it, I found a CBS tape that was just really revealing, because it was only 1 hour after the bombing, and they already knew who did it, and we were, and the people who took over Afghanistan, those filthy Taliban people, are like our friends, and they, because they were policing the outside of the airport, and the bullshit around this has gotten really thick. And the last thing I heard, not much before the show started, was a report that was putting out that there were just as many Taliban killed as there were Americans, and that 100 or so people altogether are and we're just being, I think we're just being really fed a line of bull on all this. And the truth is, the truth is, I think we can figure it out. There are Taliban who have a cool head, who say to themselves, hey, the Americans are leaving, let's let them. Let's wave bye-bye, see you, have a nice life, and get the fuck out of our country. Thank you very much. And then there are others who are going to be rabid, who are going to be crazy, and they want to kill somebody on the way out. And so you've got multiple forces. So, gee, what was going to happen here? You've got basically what we call terrorists taking over a country in essentially a coup, because they were being thrown out, and there's two bombs go off at the airport, and gee, what was going to happen? It's not hard to figure out. And what did I write anything about what I was going to read about this? I don't know. Go ahead and take it away, Amos. I was just ranting there.
Yeah, no, I think well, the problem here is that we don't know 100% who's done it. The thing is that they apparently the ISIS-K in Afghanistan has claimed responsibility. So that is something that if they indeed have been the ones doing it, we should explain exactly what the significance of that is. So ISIS is a group that is in competition with Al Qaeda, and therefore, because Al Qaeda is enmeshed with Taliban, they are enemies of each other. And so when the Taliban took over Kabul in Afghanistan, they executed Omar Khalid Kharasani, who was the former chief of the ISIS-K. ISIS-K is the chapter in Asia, and he basically they executed him as a sign to everybody in the West, and to Russia, to Iran, that they're kind of supposedly cracking down on external extremists. But let's not forget that they were rivals to begin with. So they executed this guy. This guy was in prison since last year, imprisoned by the Afghani government. And now what happened with the airport? There was this big explosion, and they apparently...
Two of them.
Yeah, and supposedly the ISIS-K claimed responsibility. Now, if they have, that may be the case. If they have not, and the Taliban is pushing this as a way to get the West to even to help them with eradicate ISIS-K further, and to at the same time take revenge on people who are trying to leave by reaching the airport. That is a possibility. I have not completely ruled that out. I don't know who in ISIS-K has claimed responsibility. That has not.
Well,
I was looking to
I don't
find
have
that
a crystal
information.
ball. I don't know who's responsible either. But I find it really strange that an anchor woman at CBS News would know all about ISIS-K and be giving out detailed reports less than an hour after the explosions happened. I mean, that is amazing technology that the evidence can be, collected, transmitted, typed up, put on cue cards and put on the teleprompter for her to read
Well,
within an hour. I mean,
well,
that's
I don't know.
I,
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
she
know.
should get a raise. All the people involved. I mean, that's some serious competence, and we need more of that.
I yeah, I don't know. See, the thing is, they knew about this organization. It's not like a new organization. The and if they indeed claimed responsibility right after the events, it is possible. I'm not discounting that. It may be the case. It very well may be the case, but
I
I'm
won't
still, I
discount it
haven't seen.
either.
I haven't
You
seen
know,
any specifics about where this admission comes from. It's just said.
well,
It's being said that they claimed responsibility. Who, when,
true,
where?
true or
I
not,
don't know.
if it didn't benefit the administration to say it was ISIS-K, we would not have learned about it within an hour of the bombing. That would, if it wasn't beneficial to the Biden administration to put that info out, we wouldn't have heard it so quickly.
And why would it be beneficial? It would be beneficial, I guess, to save face first of all, because we have to do what the Taliban is saying. We have to abide by their timeline and by their deadlines, and we're
Well,
pulling
I would
out of
suspect
Afghanistan.
I mean, a large conservative element may be wanting retaliation. And if you can claim that just as many Taliban died as Americans, who's to retaliate to? ISIS-K? Well, yes. And then you can go and I don't know. It kind of passes the buck conveniently.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that there's going to be more information about that, because it is a mess to begin with. If we can't, and I was surprised. I received this latest the latest podcast by Michael Moore has been pretty much an apologist position for the Taliban and for Biden, which very much surprised me, because he's saying the government, the administration has saved over 100,000 people in the last few days, and so we should be eternally grateful to them. And this is not being covered that way, and he's just being unfairly criticized. But we can't forget that the reason we're in this situation is because of a lack of strategy, and it's a huge. It's not a like, oops, we just didn't know our intelligence wasn't as good or whatever. It's a major event that may influence American politics for many years, for decades to come. And it's something that the government and people in the government or people external to the government knew and were warning about. It wasn't something completely unpredicted. So they failed to give it credence, and they failed to plan accordingly. And there are tons of mistakes that they've been making and still are making. Instead of extending the deadline, because we have not yet pulled out all of the people who want to get out of Afghanistan and who are endangered, they've decided to abide by the Taliban this September 1st deadline, instead of trying to evacuate people through the Bagram airport, which would have been much easier logistically, instead of the Kabul airport that has I think one or two lanes or whatever, and is much more difficult to defend. they could have done much better, and they have not, and for that he totally deserves the critique and the criticism. Unfortunately, people on the right are taking advantage of it because they're not acknowledging that under Trump it would have been even worse. And we know that because he wanted to pull out in May already. He's given
May 1st. Yeah.
He's given
and he made
everything.
And Biden was in a news report, and he put out that some reporter was interviewing him. He kind of went off on the reporter, and anyway, he was making a point that he was saying Trump forced him into this. That Trump made a deal with the Taliban that said, we will get out by May 1st if you don't blow up any Americans, don't kill any Americans. And like for an entire year, no Americans were killed. And yes. It's only since in these 2 bombings took out 13, but it's a horrible tragedy. But Trump had this deal in place, and Obama was answering some of the criticism, basically saying that he was forced into.
Yeah, but it's not like we're worried about the U.S. reputation in sticking to an agreement when the Taliban clearly broke this agreement on multiple levels prior to this time. So it defies logic. It doesn't really explain. It doesn't make sense. But let's not forget that Trump had given up every possible hand. He gave his hand completely to the Taliban. They basically called the shots, and as long as Trump's administration was concerned, as long as American troops were not hurt, anything else was for grabs. And so it's misrepresenting it to I think both are to blame, and
both are to blame. Nation building was never an intention of either one of them. They're both guilty of that.
Yeah, and saving these people, it's a moral responsibility. It's not something that we're doing out of generosity or something. We set the whole thing up. We caused these people to be compromised by working with the U.S., and now, of course, we have a responsibility to take them out. So that's my belief regarding where we are, and so we're counting the minutes to the deadline. People are, of course, frightened to even attempt to go to the airport, because in addition to going through Taliban checkpoints, they have to, which is endangering them, or kind of indicating where they stand. Even if the Taliban didn't know where they stood, now they will know, and they can track them back. But they had to pass that, and in addition to that, they could be blown up, and there's a high likelihood of additional attempts happening. So they're really in a tight spot. Going over land is a possibility, but that's a very treacherous land, and that by itself is very risky. So how those people will escape, I'm not sure, but it's a huge problem. And there's been some criticism about the fact that we're concerned with working with the Taliban while we have been working with Saudi Arabia, which is just as bit as suppressive to women and so forth. But I am against both of those.
It's a good cartoon, though. It's a very good cartoon.
But it's not to me it's not a justification to fund the Taliban. It's just condemnation for working with the Saudis, and that is the other thing that I'm worried that the U.S. that the Biden administration will see it just to fund the Taliban in order to prevent a worse the escalation of Afghanistan in terms of its participation with Al Qaeda and so forth, with terrorists. I think that's a mistake. We're again falling into that idea that if we are nice to them, they'll be nice back to us. That's not going to happen.
Well, I hope the train wreck ends. That just would keep it going, screeching forward.
Yeah, and here's Biden attempting the milk crate challenge. And we know that his popularity has dropped. Sadly, that also meant that in a poll recently conducted, it came up that Trump would have won the elections if the elections would have been held right now, and that's beyond absurd. But that's
horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the censorship issue. I see Oz has left something in the chat. Mm-hmm. Who should be in charge of suppressing misinformation?
Yeah.
Paragraph 2. How is that determined and by who? And I want to address that a little bit. Is that our government should definitely not be the one doing it, because our government does not have the interest of the people involved. So you'd have to have a government do it ultimately, but what kind of government? And that would be a government that's representing the will of the people, and that where things are open and transparent. And that's so far away from what's going on now that I have to be in agreement with everyone that no suppression should be going on under these circumstances.
And
even though I put out there, that, it's a public health emergency. Yeah, I believe that. And I'm putting out the strongest argument that can be made in favor of it. But I don't think for a minute that our administration really cares about anything but themselves in this. That, since I've been aware that things have been going on for years, this is just the COVID opportunity for the government. Is just an opportunity. They're not searching their souls. A whole lot of people get paid by the war on terror. It's a $1 billion industry. One of the things that we may get into in coming weeks is how large the undercover Pentagon army is in the United States and what are they doing. There was information put that out a few weeks ago. And so I'm sorry, Amos, I saw Oz's comment there and I wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I think we addressed it earlier, but
back to Biden.
I think we addressed it earlier, but I have to disagree with you. I don't think any government should be in the business of censorship. I think that's a dangerous precedent. They should have nothing to do with it whatsoever. If at all, there should be some independent body of like maybe a separate branch of government, such as the judicial or legislative that would be trusted to do so. I'm not even sure about that, but perhaps a public forum where people would be graded by their fairness by the public itself, and therefore they would weight into different stories as they come across them, like basically outsourcing, like public sourcing of this issue. So it's perhaps a little tricky, but I don't think the government should have any role. Neither this government nor some theoretically perfect government. I don't think that exists. So,
well, I'm just saying a theoretically perfect government, okay, but since we don't have that, basically we're agreeing, and because what's gone on through the years, as in a way, I'm glad it's finally coming out, because my fear is that if when you suppress things and you suppress discussion, society can't go forward. We got to work these things out, and the only thing, like, say you're into a particular point of view, you learn more from it. You listen to other people who hold the same point of view and who don't hold the point of view, and you teach yourself, and you become more and more informed. And the only way you can do that is when open discussion. So meaning, I'm only answering the question like, who would do it? Well, ultimately it would have to be some kind of authority. So I guess that's government somewhere, but I have no idea where it is. I'm just all I've done is say, advocate that it's a public health emergency. And I'm saying that our government is using that as an excuse to pursue their regular agenda, which is suppression of non-mainstream points of view. They don't like dissidents. They never have. And that's why the FBI was created, to suppress the socialists in America. And it was done. It's now a forgotten part of our history. And people think the G-men there were implemented to, catch the guys robbing banks. Oh no, that was PR. That came later. Their original purpose was to shut down the left, and they did it. And what's going on now, I think, is the same thing. And yeah, I want to make it real clear that I'm only putting out, my view about the public health emergency as a touchstone, because that is what they're doing. They're using that as an excuse. And so that's a point of discussion. But I do not, I've been suppressed myself. I'm just like more of a fish in the water about this thing. That's why you don't see me getting upset and pulling my hair out, because like this is just another walk in the park, but am I for it? No, I am not. Or I wouldn't have a website that is totally independent, where I can go on the dark web and nobody can see me, and I can say what I want. And so we just want to be real clear on that. And that's why I wanted to, address that question.
Okay.